Dick Butera was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
I grew up with 4 brothers and 3 sisters, and we had and still have a wonderful family. My parents eventually had 34 grandchildren, and the family has grown considerably.
Dick was on the basketball team, number 26. After high school, he attended the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
This is a picture of 2 very proud parents at my graduation from Penn. My life was totally shaped by these 2 amazing people who brought up 8 successful kids and taught us all about the value of family. After college, I went into the Army and I became a tank driver, which wasn't fun. Then I got married and began raising a family of 5 kids: Caroline, Richard, Tina, Betsy, and Annie. They lived in a historic house in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, built in 1690. I started out as a real estate salesman in my father's company, but I wasn't very good at it. But working for my father was an amazing experience. He taught me almost everything I know about business and about life today. It was like working for a philosopher. When I would screw up something, he would calmly say, "Remember, Dick, there's no right way to do the wrong thing." Soon then I became interested in land development and did projects in the Philadelphia area, in Michigan and in Hawaii and in Florida and in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
In South Carolina, Dick partnered with Billie Jean King to build the Hilton Head Racquet Club, one of the premier tennis clubs in the nation.
Billie Jean and I did other projects, including the famous Battle of the Sexes, when she played Bobby Riggs in front of a worldwide TV audience. We then started World Team Tennis, and we together owned the Philadelphia Freedom's tennis team. My children helped celebrate opening night of World Team Tennis when our team won. Elton John loved team tennis, and he was a Billie Jean King groupie. So he joined us and eventually wrote the song Philadelphia Freedom, of which I have the gold record. I think that Billie Jean has done more for equal rights for women than any living woman today. My experience with her has been extraordinary. I started skiing in Aspen in 1965. So I skied here every year until 1982, when I decided that I wanted to spend the rest of my life here. I accidentally bumped into the owner of the Aspen Club on a street corner in New York City. He described to me that the club was bankrupt and he needed to sell it, so I bought it. And on September 16, 1982, I moved to Aspen.
Dick rebuilt the Aspen Club and created events like the Aspen Tennis Festival, which aired on national TV and raised $1 million for charity. Thus began a life of philanthropy in Aspen, done anonymously when possible.
I remember when he started Project Graduation, the concept of creating a drug and alcohol-free graduation night for seniors was revolutionary. And we've had it here at the Aspen Club for 25 years now, following Dick's lead of creating a safe place for all these graduating seniors to come. That's over 2,500 kids who've been kept safe because of Dick's idea.
With his team, Dick built the Aspen Club family of companies, which included the Aspen Club Lodge, Aspen Mountain Powder Tours, Channel 16, Aspen Club Travel, Aspen Club Realty, and Aspen Club Builders. Over the years, Dick estimates that his companies employed over 3,000 people in Aspen. Dick also had personal involvement with improvements to Aspen's airport.
Well, in 1985, Drew Lewis, who at the time was the Secretary of Transportation in the Reagan administration, brought his family to visit me, and they had one of those horrible experiences getting into Aspen, 12 hours. He asked me what the problem was, and I said, "Drew, we need radar in Aspen. We have no safety radar for landings and takeoffs." A few weeks later, he called me and he said, "Can you come to Washington?" And I said, "Sure." So I went to Washington, met him in his big office, and he had 2 staff members make a presentation about putting radar in Aspen. At the end of the presentation, they said, "Mr. Secretary, this equipment's 3 years backlogged." And I'll never forget, because he said to the gentleman, "Gentlemen, the Secretary likes to ski, and the Secretary doesn't want to die. So get some radar in Aspen." 3 months later, Governor Romer showed up for a big ribbon cutting, and all the politicians claimed victory.
Ironically, sometime after helping improve safety at the airport, Dick was offered a private flight home from someone he had never met.
As we came in for a landing, the pilot missed the first landing. He circled around, and we came around the second time to land, and we crashed. But the plane didn't explode. So as the firemen came out to pull open the doors and get us out of the plane, I saw a man standing there that I had never met. It was Jim McManus, the owner of the plane. His hands were shaking, and he was pretty upset. I took him home with me, gave him a beer, and I gave him a statement that I had no injuries, physical, mental, and from that we bonded. So as he heard me talking about how much I love living in Aspen and what a great town we have, he looked at me and said, "You know what, Dick, you love this place so much that you have an obligation to fix it your own." I remember I said to him, "Hey Jim, I'm not rich enough or dumb enough to try that." So a few weeks passed and I got a phone call from him, and he said to me, "I've been thinking about the Jerome, Dick, and I think we can do it together." So we did. We bought the Jerome in April. We started construction in May, and in 6 months and 1 week, we completed the renovations. As a result of 250 very proud men working on the project 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Most people don't know that at the time, the Hotel Jerome was condemned and boarded up. The only thing open was the J-Bar. So when we started the construction, we began taking the white paint off the outside of the hotel, which was put on there by Herbert Beyer in the 50s with Pussy Pepke. Well, when Pussy Pepke saw her paint coming off, she freaked out and literally didn't talk to me for 2 years. When we got inside the building and began to explore what to do, we found that it was completely rotted out, and that's the reason for the condemnation. So we built an entire steel frame inside the hotel so that it will last now for another 100 years. But we won't paint it white.
One of the many organizations that Dick quietly supports is the Aspen Valley Ski Club.
First of all, I thought it was a great organization, and they do an amazing job for the kids in the valley. But secondly, I wanted them to include the Latino population in their training. So my contributions had a condition, and that is that the club would eventually have 25% of the kids would be Latino. I think they're at 18% today, and there's now 2,200 kids in the program.
If it wasn't for Dick's leadership and contribution, the club never would have been built. And many people don't know this because Dick does not want things public about what he does or his philanthropy or his contributions. Dick's impact on the ski club has been massive.
Then personal tragedy struck Dick's family.
I received a phone call that every parent dreads. It was from a doctor in Baltimore who said, "Your daughter Annie has cancer."
That Annie was only 24 years old. Like a good dad, Dick scoured the country looking for a magic pill or a cure.
Well, I failed. I searched the world for 21 months and couldn't find a cure, and Annie died at 25 years old. It's, the pain is something that you don't endure. You really just learn to survive with it. You realize that nature's given you an unlimited supply of tears. Fortunately for me, I ran into an old spiritual friend in Florida by accident and had breakfast. He looked at me and he said, "Dick, I can see in your eyes you're never going to heal the way you're going." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're not a victim. Annie was the victim." He said, "You're the luckiest guy in the world because you're the only guy who was ever the dad of Annie." This began my healing.
Dick's good friend, Sidney Kimmel, stood by him, anxious to help.
It inspired me to make a contribution to the last hospital Dick had discovered out in San Diego.
So one day Sidney invited me to his office. I wasn't sure why, and I walked in and he handed me a piece of stationery which read at the top, "The Sidney Kimmel Foundation for Cancer Research, T. Richard Butera, President." And I said, "What is this?" And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "You and I are going to cure cancer." So we went to work, and the first thing we realized was that the government funds for cancer research were woefully underfunded. So we decided the first thing to do was to put a march on the Capitol.
We got about 350, 400,000 people, which was a considerable size. And the following year, they did double the budget for cancer research.
The Congress allocated $500 million additional to breast cancer research. After all these years, Sidney Kimmel, my friend, has become the largest single donor to cancer research in the world. He's donated over $350 million to cancer research, all because of his kind heart and because of a little girl named Annie Butera.
In 2002, Dick started the Distinguished Service Awards, given to 15 Aspen school teachers every year for 10 years, with $10,000 awarded to each teacher. The winners were chosen by the students for service above and beyond the call of duty. He then extended the grants to hospital workers and single moms.
I think what he was trying to do is point out the good that people like teachers and firefighters and nurses do for the society. And probably that made bigger difference to the teachers, at least, and I imagine the others, than the actual money award did, was the recognition that what we were doing was important.
In 1996, Sidney Kimmel invited Dick to help transform the original New York Stock Exchange building at 55 Wall Street into a luxury hotel. On September 11, 2001, Dick was at the recently completed hotel when the Twin Towers fell.
Well, I was having a business meeting at 8:30 a.m. on 9/11 on the terrace of the hotel when the first plane hit. When the second plane hit, we still didn't have any idea what it was. So I decided to run down to ground zero to see what it was. And when I got there was a horror show with flames coming out of both buildings, 1,000 sirens. It was an indescribable picture of hell. 2 policemen saved my life by chasing me away from the spot, and I ran back to the hotel. At the end of the day, Mayor Giuliani called us and said that our huge ballroom was going to be the feeding center for all the firemen, policemen, EMTs working on ground zero, all of them searching for their friends. So we set up and started serving 3,600 meals a day to these heroes. For the first 10 days, we served 36,000 meals. And I had the chance to sit and eat and cry with these heroes. And I'll remember their captain looked at me one day and said, "The difference between you guys and us is when there's a tragedy or a fire, you run from it and we run to it."
He came to me right after 9/11, I believe it was, during a Christmas party, before a Christmas party for fire department, and told me he wanted to give all the firemen, a substantial amount of cash. And I said, "Dick, we don't want to do this. We don't need your money. We do this because we love it, because we want to help community." He goes, "Well, Rick, I can't run into burning buildings, but I can help this way. This is my way of helping." And he came back to my office with a bag full of cash and some envelopes and asked me to put cash in there and hand it out at the Christmas party, which I did. Only it was anonymous at the time, but I guess it's time for the secret to come out. Thanks, Dick.
In 2005, Dick was at the Aspen Valley Hospital with his wife at the time, Sophie Harvey, for what he describes as a miracle in his life.
September 28th, 2005, she was to deliver at 9 a.m. I was outside in the hallway because I'm too chicken to go into the operating room, and I looked down the hall and I saw a giant of a man walking toward me with his wife. It was Dr. Howell Whitcomb. Everybody loved Dr. Whitcomb. He was the cardiologist, he was the internist, he was the gynecologist, he was the orthopedic, and he was the vet. Whitty at the time was in hospice bed and had made his last visit to the hospital, but somehow got himself up and got to the hospital to help deliver Miles. He grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "Let's go, we're going in." And next thing I know, I'm next to Sophie as she delivered Miles. Whitty assisted in the delivery and handed me the angel, the miracle of my life. And I'll always remember, as he held Miles over his head, he would look up at Miles and say, "Remember, Dick, you can't love him too much." Miles is growing to be an extraordinary young man. He and I do everything together, 24/7. We play sports, we play basketball, we play soccer, we play football, we ski together, we fish together, we do homework, we do Monopoly, we cook, and we do the dishes. So the best way for me to describe Miles is, a few weeks ago I had a chest cough, and I was coughing during the night, and about 6:30 in the morning, I felt a kiss on my cheek, and a little guy standing on the edge of my bed. And I said, "Miles, what are you doing awake so early?" And he looked at me and said, "Dad, when you cough, my chest hurts."